the majority of the people carrying out the harassment directly seem to be either in some kind of trance by looking at their eyes, or under the influence of drugs, narcotics. They are either completely satanic, or they're being used by something which is satanic. I'm not saying that demons have overtaken these people in the conventional sense, but they don't seem volitional. In many instances, the perps have had, that I've noticed, I've had a kind of a glazed look in their eyes, like their eyes are sort of wet and their lips are sort of wet, as if they're in some sort of a trance. They're not in a normal level of consciousness. And that has happened on many occasions, where the same glazed eyes that look all wet and shiny and blank, like they're in some state of ecstasy, you know, and the lips are always wet, and they're like, they look like they're hypnotised or in a trance, or on, like I said, on drugs. And for people completely unknown, complete strangers, to participate in something like that, they've got to be getting something out of it. And I find it hard to believe that all the people, or the majority that I've noticed that have managed to be close enough to see this, have had these glazed eyes, and they've been acting as if they're in a trance. The movements are odd. They're not. They're like they're being controlled, or they're under some kind of mind control. I can recognise somebody in a trance or on drugs, and I'm sure you can. They're completely different than somebody that isn't under any external influence. Who or what is controlling them? Such large numbers of people to do and say ridiculous things. Is it mind control? Are these people being hypnotised? Are they being subliminally hypnotised to do and say things that they don't have no knowledge of doing or saying afterwards? Or are they some kind of drug ring? I mean, I do know in my situation that the people involved in a lot of the targeting, in me in particular, are involved in drugs. So is that the simple answer? But when I have travelled, it's 200 miles away from where I lived, and I stayed there for a couple of weeks, I had the same experiences with the same look in the perp's eyes. And I think a lot of reasons why children are used is also because it sounds completely ridiculous to be abused by children. And the things that the children are saying are not, obviously, they've been put into the minds. Children don't say things, they don't even know those words, or they don't have that intellect capable of being so manipulative and evil, you know, without it being fed to them. So I think one of the reasons they use children is because their minds are fresh and innocent, and they are very easy to mind control or hypnotise because they're very trusting. So I think when the perps are doing what they're doing, certainly do not take it personally, because it's all a game. It's all a plan to harass you, to get you to do or think or behave in a certain way by people that I probably have no idea about the bigger picture. So I just thought I'd say something, because to me, these are mind-controlled perps, or they are on some kind of drugs. And because these are my observations, because when you go 200 miles away and the same things happen, the same trigger words are said to you, and they cannot be coincidental the way they're done. It's very obvious, very in your face. So, and the same feeding back of your thoughts when you're having them, or what conversations. So if that's happened 200 miles away, by people whose eyes are glazed, yeah, the people who are doing this, it's a bit, their eyes are glazed, their lips are wet. They're not in some kind of normal state of consciousness. And another theory which I've come up with is that of either they're under some kind of electromagnetic mind control, or they're not really the same as myself, in that they're completely devoid of empathy, soul. They're like robots. There's that possibility that, I mean, people are different anyway, aren't they? What is, you have like a large spectrum of personalities, and if you like, people have different, some people have a wide a lot of octaves of feeling, and some people only have a small octave of feeling. They can't experience things other people can, etc. But these people that carrying all this out, they seem, to put it sounds odd, but this whole program's odd. It seems like they're some sort of generalized person, that they're limited. They have the same energy. They all have the same energy, and they, in some instances, they seem to have the same way of moving and the same way of acting. And I was harassed by 4 men directly. Again, this was like the remote neuromonitoring, and it was also threats of something that was going to happen, which did. And they all look like they've been doing the same exercises. Now, if you go to a gym, everyone's got the same muscles, they build them up. But this was uncanny. It was like they'd all got the same type of muscular development on certain areas of the body in proportion to other areas. You understand what I'm saying? The symmetry was the same. And they weren't related. But they all had the same energy blueprint. To me, what I got off them, obviously that's not tangible, but it was apparent to me. And they just looked, they had something in common. It was, and I've noticed this with a lot of the people that I will call perps. So they're either being goaded, trained, hypnotized, or given the same drugs, or programmed in the same way, because there is a commonality between nearly all the perps and the ways that they behave. Right, I'm going to say this now because I think it's important. When you move to another house and another area, and you move to another area after that, and the same things happen, exactly the same things happen, it's either a plan or it's, I don't believe that people like myself and people that I know in my circle would remotely dream of doing anything like what these perps are doing. So they're either under some kind of mind control. And there was an instance where, many instances of course, but this particular one was where I was in a nightclub and I'd been abducted about a week before. I was in this nightclub and there were these group of young people came in I went to a bar before I went in the nightclub, and they were saying the trigger words very loudly, and they weren't, I can't say the trigger words because if you are targeted, they will say the same words or phrases over and over again, which are specific to you. They're only something to do with you, and in some cases it's your name as well. And they followed me to the nightclub. Well, they came in an hour after I'd arrived there. And they came and sat very near me, and I moved, and then they moved, and they was throwing their voices, it's a loud nightclub, over, so I would hear what they was doing. They was just trying so much to get my attention, and obviously they was stood in front of me. There was about 4 people, and they were young people, you know, they were dressed nice, and they was acting so strange, and they weren't particularly drunk, although it looked to me like they was acting as if they was drunk, but they weren't really drunk. For instance, they was picking up beers and cans and mocking that they was throwing their head back drinking it when the cans didn't have that much drink in them. You could tell by the way they was holding it, and the same can, there was as if they was, we're drunk, we're knocking this drink back, and there was nothing in the can, or the can was very light. It was like if you was on stage and you was projecting your actions and you wanted to project them to the back of the auditorium, you would exaggerate your actions, wouldn't you? Yeah. That's what they were doing. It's like everything was exaggerated what they were doing. So they stuck out, plus they've been shouting to get my attention. Not at me. You understand? It's never done directly at a target. So I moved a couple of times, and then what they started to do was they started showing each other their phones. And they was open. They was sort of like in a semicircle, but open to where I was. And then when I'd been abducted and I found myself somewhere, I actually had my trousers pulled down. It's embarrassing to say this, but, I was a victim. And I was sort of like bent over, if you like. And I came to sort of wondering why I was on this busy road with my trousers bent over, okay? This has actually happened, yeah. So I wasn't, as far as I know, I don't think I was, so I remember that, and I remember telling that to the police, and I remember telling that to people at the hospital when I went to the hospital, because I asked them about what I should do, and I had this sore shoulder and other things where all my fingernails were torn and ripped, and a missing time, complete, yeah, I didn't know, it was blank. So back to the nightclub, the boy, he actually mocked pulling his trousers down, and he sort of bent over and looked round the nightclub as if, where am I? And the others were laughing. Now, that wouldn't have gone on anyone's radar, but because that had happened to me about a week before, and because they were shouting out these bloody words and phrases, and they was deliberate, and they'd been in the bar before, obviously that's going to get my attention. But let me just say this is the point of this talk, not just to explain what's happened to me. How can I put it? The way they was acting, the dancing was not, I'm not saying they couldn't dance, I'm saying that it was delayed. Just little fractions. But it was similar within the group. You get a group of people and one is a little bit out of time when they're dancing, or people are unique, they dance differently. These group, I think about 4 people that had done this, who was pretending to be exaggerating drinking, throwing their heads back with the cans as if they was all, we're drunk. They wasn't. The way they was all dancing was identical. And it was identical, which was odd, in that it was all slightly out, You would have to have seen it, and to anyone else, they would probably just assume that these people were drunk, and that these people were on drugs or something. Perhaps they were on drugs also. But the way they was moving, it was all synchronised. It was all coordinated, but it was slightly out, like they was in their own little thing of consciousness, their own groove. All 4 of them. It was so strange. And it was pitiful, really, because to me, they just wasn't... I mean, I've seen people on drugs, and to me, I'd say that there was something else involved also. And I may have spoken about this before, but this is another thing where it's happened to me, where I've been listening to something, and I think this is a case of remote neural monitoring, and I mean, I do get that a lot, where I'm out somewhere and people will come near and they're not having a sensible conversation. There's always background noise and there's just words popping up, and that is what I'm thinking. For instance, I'd been in a restaurant and I'd eaten something, and I got picked some tissue up off the table, and I went to wipe my lipstick. And I thought, I wonder if I'm going to smudge it on my cheeks. And the woman, again, it was a group of people that arrived, and they all had this weird, like, group energy signature. That's all I can put it. Nobody asked anybody what they wanted to eat. They just came in, and one person ordered the same stuff for everybody, the same drink for everybody. Nobody opened the can of drink. They all just spun the cans round like it was the same person. And one of the woman, when I did that with my lipstick, she kept staring, and she said, she had this nurse's outfit on that was all needed ironing and didn't look clean. She says, "Rouge on your cheeks. Get the lipstick on your cheeks." And I was thinking that when I wiped my lipstick with the tissue, I was thinking, I don't want to get it on my cheeks, I don't want to smudge it. And a few other things like that. So she was either watching me very, very closely and trying to make me believe that she was reading my mind, or she actually was. But there's been other instances where I've been in bars and people quite far away. I've been looking at something or thinking something, and they've just said it, And I may have actually mentioned this before, where there was a partition between me and some people. And I was looking at something on my phone, and they said what it was, and they didn't even have the phones there. I was looking at a truck with some kind of jamming radar on it. It just came up when I was doing an internet search. And I was using a VPN shield. And they didn't have any phones, though they weren't looking at any. And she said, "You better get that truck in here now then." They were gangstalking me. And there was a partition. And she says, "You better get that truck in here now." And that's what I was looking at, a truck with a big radar thing on the back. And another time, I went in a public toilet, and I was going to put a little leaflet up about gangstalking. And I didn't do, because there was nowhere to put it, so I left it on the floor. And the people that had said that were sat next to me in this pub, this is a private cubicle, yeah? She said, the woman that had said about better get that truck in here now, she said, "Put the leaflet on the floor. Don't worry, I'll put it in the bin for you." And then they all laughed. And I thought, that's really odd, that. And then the night before, I'd come up with a song, and I'd put it into my dictaphone, and I'd thank God for it. Well, it wasn't in my phone, actually. And I remember thinking, I haven't got my dictaphone with me. I thought, I can do it on my phone. I've got my phone in my pocket. Because I didn't want to lose the song. Yeah, I didn't want to lose the melody. It came to me words I melodied together. So I got it out of my pocket, and I just sang it very quietly. This is about 11 at night on a busy road. There was nobody around. And although somebody did just appear, I remember that. A man just appeared out of nowhere. And he walked behind me and cut across. So I don't know about that, about nobody being there. And people in the bar, they said that was the same instance, but it was the people behind me, and they says, "Oh, thank you very much for that song." Yeah, this is what he said, "I had my recorder." No, he says, "I had my," no, he didn't say phone, he said recorder, yeah. "I had my recorder in my pocket. Yeah, I managed to get it. I managed to get it down. Thanks for that last night." And it could have been coincidence. But you have 3 coincidences there. You have, this is within the space of half an hour. You have the truck. You have the "Don't worry, I'll put the leaflet in the bin for you." And you have the song. And this sort of thing happens quite frequently. So it's obviously some kind of, and again, you have the one with the rouge. But I think she was sat there, she was definitely watching me. And that was part of this nonsense. And there was another thing as well where I was looking at this light switch, this light fitting, it had dolphins on it. And that was the one with the rouge as well. And she said something about the dolphins. I was just thinking that would look nice in a bathroom rather than a restaurant because of the dolphins, the water theme. And she actually said, "Put it in the bathroom," But what they're doing is these things that they're feeding back, they're not fully formed. They're not full sentences, really. They're usually just bits, snippets, just like what I've said, like "rouge on your cheeks," or "put it in the bathroom," or like "don't worry, I'll put it in the bin for you." The other thing that was a little bit fuller was the guy who said about the recorder in the pocket and stuff. Which, what am I supposed to do? What is the purpose of letting me know that they, to some extent, know how my mind's working or what I'm thinking or what I'm doing? So what? What is the purpose of this? You know? Okay, I've gone off the subject matter a little bit then, which was one of mind-controlled perps. And it's gone into remote neural monitoring. Okay, I just thought I'd put this information out because there may be those people. I mean, in my early stages of being targeted, I wasn't aware of any of this. I just thought I was being harassed in very sick ways, and I thought I'd offended somebody, which is not difficult to do these days, is it really? But I thought inadvertently I might have offended somebody, but it's turned into much, much more than that. And they're actually techniques that are used that are exactly what I'm experiencing, exactly what I'm going through. So there you go. I've put this on so that other people can share their experiences also. Because you have this thing where you have the mental illness thing, and that is their cover. That is their way of discrediting anybody that's going to expose this bizarre and sick technology and scheme that is going on. I have my own ideas about what the ultimate purpose of all this experimentation, which I don't think it is, I think they can do it, I think it's gone beyond that, is about. But I'll allow that, to float around for a while before I put anything down about that. But I'm putting this on because I think it's important that my story is told, and also those that are going through this, that maybe there's a commonality. I do know I've listened to other, I've read other stuff by people, and I can relate to that. Yeah. Okay. Right. Thank you. God bless. Bye.